Welcome to my live stream, live from Bangkok, Thailand. And today in the Red Pills news, the top story is, oh my God, Gavin Newsom. The liberal Democrat and the governor of the most liberal state in America did something that only a Republican, I would think, would do. He got red pilled, liked it, and created an initiative in California to help men and boys. Yeah. And you know who helped to red pill him? The late Charlie Kirk. That's right. When he appeared on Gavin Newsom's podcast earlier this year, yes, that actually happened. He answered Gavin's question about what can Democrats do to start winning elections again, and he said this.
And we saw this as an opportunity, especially with young men. And again, this got ridiculed a lot by the press that, they're creating this manosphere thing. Look, they're half of the population and necessary for any society and civilization to succeed.
Yeah, that's a quite simple concept. Men are half of the population and are half of and are required to succeed for any country. This is why I think TikTok is trying to ban and censor manosphere and red pill movement, because if you don't allow that, right, then you weaken a country like America. So if anything, TikTok and Red Notes, which by the way I just got kicked out of, are doing this. It is really not that kind of complicated. Now, as you know, I was in shock when I saw Gavin Newsom care about what I thought was a Republican issue, which is giving a shit about men and men's issues. And one of the other, besides Charlie Kirk, one of the other people who helped to red pill him was, believe it or not, Barack Obama, when he said this when he was being interviewed by his own wife on her podcast a couple of months ago.
Democrats, progressive parents, enlightened ones, we've made that mistake sometimes in terms of our rhetoric, where it's like we're constantly talking about, what's wrong with the boys instead of what's right with them.
Yes, this is Barack Obama telling his own party how to win elections again. But the Democratic Party stopped listening to him a long time ago because, they're doing so well. And what does Barack Obama know about, winning? So let's just summarize here. Gavin Newsom, and again, I do not like the guy. I'm not a Republican and I'm not a Democrat. I'm an independent, but I do not like Gavin Newsom as somebody who lived in California for a long freaking time. I don't like the guy. But he did surprise me by making this announcement, which, again, a very sort of pro-Republican announcement, caring about men, caring about boys. This is, like Charlie said, half of the population. You have to care. Now, of course, politicians who would navigate this would have to navigate this quite, carefully, because, on the other side, they still have to cater to women and feminists, especially if you are a Democratic politician like Gavin Newsom, right? So this was now. Let me play a clip for you where he talks about what kind of statistics that made him think about it and actually put this initiative forward and go actually with it in reality.
When I was given a national poll that someone shared, a simple question that was asked to young men and boys, where 69% of them were asked a question of whether or not they align to the sentiment that people don't care if boys are okay.
That's right. Pretty much 70% of men in California and boys feel like nobody gives a shit about them. Now, that is a shocking figure, but only because it's only 70% of them. Where the fuck are the rest of the men and boys? How do they not know that nobody cares about them? I mean, what are the indications that anybody gives a shit? I mean, it's been like this for a while. So yes, I am not, like I said, the only thing that I would be surprised about this poll is why this number is so low, actually. Now, Nobody noticed what Gavin Newsom said in that conference. At least I haven't seen that in the media, as he put this initiative that, again, I would expect a Republican to do, to, care about boys and men in California. Nobody noticed that he said this one thing that probably is one of the most important thing in this whole manosphere concepts.
That we need to do more to recruit men as teachers. Look at elementary and middle school. Not many men teaching any longer.
That's right. He is right. Gavin Newsom is right on men's issues. Can you believe that? Yes, the reason we have this generation of this species that just devolved from men that are now simps and beta males is because they were all raised by single mothers and feminists and woke modern women. And now American men are just second-class citizens who are serving these women in every single way. In order to stop that, men should be raising men. Now, I don't know if they have any left to mentor these boys. I'll be happy to volunteer, but it has to at least be realized. And, kudos to Gavin Newsom, who I don't really like, for putting men's issues forward finally for once. Now, here's an interesting part, right? Because, as I said, I and many other people were shocked to see Gavin Newsom do something very Republican, right? Give a shit about men's issues, because a lot of people feel like this was a Republican thing, right? As a matter of fact, one of many reasons why Donald Trump won the re-election was because he catered to a lot of men and men's issues when he was running through his campaign, right? Now, unfortunately, since getting elected, he has not done anything yet to advance men's issues forward. However, and many people don't know this, especially I think people who voted for him, is that the last big anti-men legislature was signed into law by Donald Trump during his first term. And if you don't know that, and you're a man living in America, maybe you should care a little bit less about trans people and immigrants at Home Depot and a little bit more about men's issues, which are your issues. Because if you are a man in America, you're currently a second-class citizen that's serving women around them, even though you're the ones who mainly build and maintain everything that you see in America. So, gentlemen, when you go voting next time, I think that men's issues for us are much more important than many other issues, because we have fallen so far behind, um, that it is necessary. And by the way, so this initiative, now, I was at first like, oh, what is, do I really trust California to do anything right? I don't. I lived there for a long time, and I don't. But, in this case, this is actually an initiative that's in partnership with California Volunteers, which is an established organization. I think is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, in California. And this has sort of been handed over to them with the support of California government. I love that. And their goal right now, as you can see from their website, they're trying to recruit 10,000 volunteers, men, to coach and serve as community leaders for California youth, right? And listen, I got to tell you, think what you want about Gavin Newsom. Again, I don't like him, politically, but you got to give it to him. He is definitely, hopefully this is sincere, but he is definitely moving in the right direction, because at some point, and I understand he's got to be careful, just like any politician, because he still wants the votes from the feminists. But what are they going to do? Vote for Trump? No way, right? So I think this is how Trump kept his base, right? They weren't that happy with him, but they're like, well, we're not going to vote for Kamala either, right? So, feminists are not going to vote for Republicans anytime soon. So I think there's some wiggle room for politicians like Gavin Newsom in moving a bit to the center, right? And start actually addressing issues that are still on the table. Men's issues are absolutely on the table for either of the parties to grab. Well, this is something that I guess, if anything, he's been a smart politician. Hopefully, he's also, some of a man. I got to tell you, I don't have any sort of signs to tell you that he is a simp and a beta male. So I listen. I don't care. I'm an independent. I don't care which party you come from. If you're going to cater to men's issues, I'm in. Okay, so I hope the Republicans also start doing as well, and including Donald Trump, who's in office right now. Again, I would prefer him to care about the Charlie Kirk critics and tariffs a little bit less, and care more about men's issue a little bit more. You know, get rid of alimony, get rid of stupid laws that allow, or not, the lack of, that allow women to accuse men without any evidence and get away with it. He was a victim of both of those things. How does he not care about it with his heart? This is his 5th year of presidency, going on to the 6th one pretty soon. I'm genuinely, like, again, I'm not a big Trump fan either. Like I said, I'm independent. I don't like either of the parties right now, but I'm rooting for him to get those issues at least on the table, at least to talk about. And so far, nothing's been touched. From the live chat, Camel Ass said, "Men have to work real jobs in the U.S. Women get $1,000 a year doing DEI government jobs." Yeah, and like, even if they're not DEI jobs, right? It's just been proven that the majority, like a vast majority of jobs that create and maintain the infrastructure, the security and safety for those women are men. That is just undeniable. How is that men with all the voting power and all the representation everywhere in every government essentially are losing the battle of their own rights? How is that? What today's Jimmy Kimmel criticized Republicans for Charlie Kirk reactions, and like now he's off the air. Like, all of a sudden that happens, but men's rights, nobody gives a shit about. When men get accused falsely by a bunch of women, lose their livelihoods, sometimes lives, and nobody gives a shit, right? So even the regular jobs that women do, like teachers, like heads of HR, when they're not busy banging their bosses at the Coldplay concerts, yes, I mean, are they useful jobs? Yes, of course. But are they as important as the jobs of men, and as a hard as job? You're sitting in an air conditioned a classroom and teaching the kids. Now, I think most women do a horrible job teaching kids just in general, but it is a cushy job. It is a cushy job. It's not like you're working on an oil rig, for 6 weeks in a row, trying to not drown there in oil or water or both, right? So yeah, it is what it is. And like I said, well, who do we blame? We're in charge. We are half of the voting power, right? And a lot of our your wives and girlfriends know who the provider is in the family, right? So they should vote accordingly. How are we losing this? How are the men in America have drove themselves into the second class citizenships, and essentially their main job became to just please women and cater to women in every single way, and just and by the way, when I say second class citizens, I don't just mean culturally. I mean legally. It's also culturally, right? Men cannot say a lot of things anymore. They cannot stand up for themselves. They just have to take it and do nothing about it. But at some point, like I said, it looked like men do know how to organize. With when a trans person is in charge of the marketing campaign of their favorite beer, and Kid Rock is in charge, somehow men are able to organize. But when their own rights are being basically kicked from right under them, I don't really know if that much left. Thank God we have a right to vote, and when you getting treated like shit in the media, when you getting treated like shit in just women. Listen, I get treated like shit by Western women here all the time. This is why I try not to interact with them. But I'm able to stand up for myself. There's no punishment here for standing up for yourself. I flat out tell them what I think, and they're not going to do shit about it because they know this is Thailand. Things don't work the same way. I just mentioned the other day when one of the women were just trying to jam right through me, and instead of just going like, okay, go, here you go, girl, no, ran right into my shoulder. And it's going to happen again. I guarantee you that. This is how men should act. Instead, men are pussies and beta males and simps in America. So my bigger concern is like these 10,000 of mentors. Who are they going to be? If these are also going to be simps and beta males, then it's a moot point. You can raise a man by somebody who's not really a man. So, if anything, now I appreciate the rhetoric, by the way. Just the rhetoric of this is great. I love that, right? But when we get to the implementation, I'm a little worried about who's going to be in charge, because they didn't invite men like me so far, right? Uh, um, Living overseas, you see what a real economy looks like. No DEI jobs or fake make work for women jobs. This is one big reason women overseas appreciate men more. No government work welfare. Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is a society where people appreciate men and also older people and elderly, something that's completely lost on the new generation in America, right? People who are older just have more experience and seen more shit, and they're also the ones that build the country, right? That's why you should respect them. Without that, without respect for men and the people who build the country and maintain it for you, how can a society function, really? How can it be a successful society? No, I absolutely agree with that. So, like I said, I love this initiative. I'm shocked that it came from Gavin Newsom. I think this is a moment that Republican could have actually seized, but this is a good start, but it's not like Democrats now own it, right? So hopefully more comes out of it. Again, I don't care about which party does it. I'm glad that the Democratic Party is trying to do something. Like, it's funny how Republicans have succeeded recently, because they kind of stolen a lot of things that Democrats used to own. In some ways, even minority votes, right? That Trump stole from Democrats and other issues. But it's not like Democrats can't do the same. They should. But again, I don't care who does it. I don't care if it's Democrats, Republicans, independents, aliens. I don't give a shit. As long as men's issues are being talked about, and hopefully at some point there is legislation to reverse it. I'm still hoping that Donald Trump, as I said, being a victim of at least two, um, set of laws, or the lack of anti-men laws, I'm hoping he's going to put something on the table. Like I said, alimony, child support, it's got to go. And what I mean by child support got to go, meaning men should not pay a ridiculous amount of money for a child that requires $500 a month, you know? And the child support should always, always, always be paid to the provider of the services to the child, whether it's partially covering the rent for the extra room to the landlord, or the store, or the medical provider. That money should never go into the pocket of the single mother, who mainly spends it or herself. Those laws got to go. This is something that actually has been implemented in many other parts of an American government, right? Why not do this with alimony and child support? We also got to get rid of some laws where women can just accuse men of doing whatever without any evidence after 10 years, never going to the police or authorities when it actually happens, just to damage men's reputation. That's got to go too. And I'm kind of hoping, again, not a Donald Trump fan here, but I'm hoping and rooting for him to do this for men like himself. So, okay, I rarely bring good news to you guys, but today we got to celebrate. This is a good news. Again, I don't care what you think about Gavin Newsom. By the way, how awesome is this picture? AI generated and everything. I don't care what you think about Gavin Newsom, but let's celebrate an American politician, not only speaking out for men's rights and men's issues, but actually creating something that I think is good. Like, I am surprised that this initiative, it probably has legs because it's been kind of done in a partnership with an existing organization that does this anyway. So I love that. And again, let's celebrate it while it lasts. Kamala says, workfare, child support, alimony, divorce, grape, etc. Anything that takes money from men and gives it to women stimulates spending, because women spend every penny that they generate. Yes, I agree. Now, here's the thing. I do agree that there should be some child support, because here in Thailand there is not much of that going on, right? So if men decides to have a child with a woman, regardless of whether staying together or not, the man should carry some of the financial responsibility, right? I mean, I think that's just reasonable, because women by default has to. Alimony I don't agree with, but if you decided that your wife is going to be a housewife and then you decide to get a divorce, uh, you do have to give her something for her to just get started. You can't throw her out on the street, right? I don't think that really happens, but I'm just saying. So I am for some transition period from a full-time housewife, since that was the man's decision, right? Into a workforce again. So there are some things that I do support as far as money going from men to women, but in the case of child support, it needs to go directly to the providers of the child's products and services. So, but overall, yes. Now, by the way, let's not forget where this comes from. Let's not forget that men, when it comes to dating and even being friends with women, volunteer giving their money to women. If a man is a friends with a woman, which I should suggest should never happen unless it's an ugly woman, right? Unless it's a woman you don't want to bang, then by all means. Now, but if a man is friends with a woman, and he, again, even the ugly one, and you go for a dinner, friendly dinner, like you would with a friend, a lot of times men pay. Why? Just why do you consistently volunteer giving your money to a woman for no good reason? And of course, don't get me started on pretty much most American men who insist on giving money over paying for dinner on the first date, paying for the taxi, buying shit for women, bringing the flag, all this shit that men do way before a woman deserves it, if there is such a thing. And then, of course, into the relationships. And I see a lot of this even here, right? These dudes come here, make a girl quit their job, and essentially just pile, cash, just bury a girl into a pile of cash where you don't even know if she's a whore or not, right? So men need to stop giving money to women voluntarily first, before we can expect the laws to change and not require that also, right? Stop simping, stop giving money to women voluntarily where you don't need to and when they haven't deserved it at all or just yet. So let's also put some responsibility on men, because at the end of the day, like I said, what you permit, you promote. American and Western men have permitted women to take charge, to make men into secondary citizens, beta males, simps, whatever. And all men do right now is serve women. That's it. Uh, until that changes, at least from the volunteer point of view, right? Stop volunteering. I don't think that any legislature would ever have any support, because why would they? Why would politicians change? So at the end of the day, kudos to a man I don't like, but today, kudos to him for doing this. I hope more politicians do this. And again, couldn't care less which politician, Republican, Democrat, men's issues need to be on the table. All right, guys, thanks for hanging out with me. Tomorrow I will be back with another live stream with more red pill news. Until then, I will see you tomorrow. If you want to ditch modern women and move abroad for more traditional relationships, go to themillionmanproject.com, take my most comprehensive course, and change your